Hello, everybody. Tuesday, 2:30 golf show from Osimo.com. Myself, Ben Raza, here with Tim Frank, Fantasy Golf Man. Got through the non-cut, got through the WGC, got through the Puerto Rico Open at the same time, which is a win in itself. We're to Florida, the Honda Classic. Are you a fan of the Florida swing? We got a lot of Bermuda coming up in our lives.
Yeah, I'm 100% a fan. Just for the fact that golf starts earlier. That's just so
Correct.
much better. You don't have to wait for golf to start like it does on the West Coast swing. It's basically you get up and the golf is probably already started or it's going to start. So yeah, it's the earlier the better. So yeah, big fan of the Florida swing. Yeah, and I mean these are good events. They moved the Players Championship up this year, so that's part of the actual Florida swing. It's what is it, 2 weeks from now?
I believe so.
2 or 3 weeks from now. Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, good events in Florida. I mean, the field for this event took a little bit of a hit, and maybe some of that has to do with the players moving up in the schedule. But this is a really cool course, and there's enough big names here that I'm excited for this week.
I actually was going to bring that up. I think so too, because you got the WGC last week, and then you have API in the play, and it's like a run up to the Masters. I think a lot of guys were worried, Tiger obviously in particular, about playing like you don't want to be playing 5-6 weeks in a row. So the Honda kind of got the short stick, I think, for a couple dudes. This is a good break week, and then you rev it up. Obviously, the Players only a couple weeks away, but you're right. Obviously, now we got water in our lives, though. That's the one. It's just tough because you can actually just get incredibly crushed incredibly fast.
Yeah, this is a tough course. It's definitely, I would call it like a high variance event.
That's right.
With all the water, with the difficulty of the course. You know, nobody's a lock to make the cut this week. So this is, if any week you're going to avoid the chalk, I would say this is probably the best week of the year, probably the highest variance event of the year. So you definitely do not want to be playing high owned players this week. So it's a tough course, water everywhere. We'll just kind of get into the description. 7,100 yard par 70. Like you said, Bermuda greens. So we're bringing back into play a lot of the SEC guys, a lot of the guys that are more comfortable on this surface. We haven't seen it in a while. So maybe some of the guys that haven't putted well out on the Poe greens of the West Coast, maybe their putting gets a little bumped this week because they're more comfortable on this surface. But yeah, this is a tough course, and the wind can play a huge factor. We've seen it play like the second toughest course on tour ahead of the majors. On years where the wind gets up, we've seen the winning score, -6, -8, -9. It's because it can play like a major, and even without the wind, it's still tough. I think -12 is probably the lowest these guys will get, even if the wind is down. So it's going to be tough, regardless. Tough off the tee, a lot of water. One of the weeks where I'll actually probably be looking at short game because the tougher the course plays, the more reliance there is on short game. Still would lean to the ball striking. I don't want a terrible ball striker and a total scrambler. Because if you get loose with a couple shots, you can make some big numbers. But yeah, definitely guys are going to have to scramble this week regardless if the wind is up or not. So it's a tough course.
It's a weird situation in the sense of I'm with you. There is a correlation between if a course is really hard, obviously you're not hitting as many greens. The one thing here, though, is you can't scramble from the water. So if you're wildly off with the irons, you may not get the chance to save some of these shots. It's definitely a high variance event. It is what it is. And you're going to see that in the course. Like I think on a macro level, you don't want to panic. You're going to see some guys where it's like, wow, they have 2 top 10s and 2 missed cuts, because that's what you get. The Players highlights that too, just from the island green, like a couple bad holes and you can just be out of it. So you have to embrace that. It is what it is. I'm a big fan of the Florida swing. I like it. This course in particular, though, it seems that wind is the biggest defense, and it is windy here almost all the time. As I say that, the conditions look like they're going to be as calm as they ever are. We'll have to wait and see. We still have 2 days. Do you do anything with that? I mean, it always seems like it's windy here.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think there are players that play better at tougher courses like we talked about before. There's certain players that you want to target at Birdie Fest, and I think there's a different type of player that you maybe want to target under tougher scoring conditions. But But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make that big, of a change to my normal process this week. I'm just going to plan for it to play difficult, even if it's not outrageously difficult. It's still going to play as one of the harder courses on tour. So I mean, I don't think I'll change too much. And if the wind looks like it's just going to be moderate to light, that's fine. But it's still going to play it tough.
I think I'm with you. I may obviously, if you play enough teams, you can stack some tee times, do some things like that, and I wouldn't be stunned to see they're an advantage at the end of the day. But all in all, it should be favorable scoring conditions for a course that's very difficult. It's got the bear trap. Here we go with the animal names. It's a 3-hole stretch on the back nine, but all in all, I play it pretty straight up. I do think it's a good opportunity, again, on a macro level, for guys who haven't been putting, and we'll get into some real bad ones, to hit the reset button. It can't hurt going to a new surface. But let's just jump into it. I got nothing else on this course. So we got JT, almost 12K. He's 11.9 on DraftKings. That's pretty outrageous. Ricky, Brooks, Adam Scott, and Sergio are the 10K plus options. Not the strongest, not like last week, obviously. What do you think? You think it's the right order? You going up all the way up, or are you going to go balanced?
Yeah, I really, and we'll get to the kind of the 9K guys. It's like there's a lot of really guys in the 9K range that I don't like. So I think, I'm not going to go super balanced this week. I definitely like at least one of these guys at the top. JT, it's like, what's not to like with him? He has one missed cut in his last 38 events, 9th, 2nd, 3rd, 16th, 3rd. I mean, that's his finishes this year. He's won here. He's got a top 3 here. As we've talked about, the approach game has been dominant. Gained some strokes off the tee last week. That was a weird event, though. It felt like a lot of guys were gaining a lot of strokes off the tee. I don't know if that had to do with some of the drivable par fours, or the fact that the ball was carrying so far in the altitude. Just hitting the ball farther is going to gain you more strokes. But he did gain strokes off the tee. So he played really well. So obviously I like JT. I think he'll be pretty chalky. Don't really like Fowler. The ball striking has not been good for him. Lost almost 5 strokes with the ball striking in Mexico. Obviously won the waste management, but then at the Farmers he lost 4 strokes with the ball striking, and that's only over a 3-round span. So like 2 of the last 3 starts, the ball striking's not been good. So I don't think I like that price for him. But going down, I do like Brooks. T27 last week, he gained 9 strokes with the ball striking, lost 5 strokes putting. So really, he struck it better than JT. The putter was just bad. And Brooks has been a very good putter, 12th and 23rd in strokes gained putting the last 2 seasons. So I would expect, the 5.5 strokes he lost putting last week, that's kind of an anomaly. So I do like Brooks, especially if he's going to come in at, considerably lower ownership than JT. And you're getting a savings. Yeah, you're getting a savings. And I don't know, it seems tough to make lineups. There's not a lot of cheap guys I want to play. So that savings just dropping down to 10.7 from 11.9, that could come in handy as well. So I like Brooks. I like JT, not on Ricky this week.
It's tough. I mean, I'm such a Ricky guy. I'm supposed to take the Ricky side of this, but I'm on Brooks as well. He's not going to be as popular. That was, he wasn't coming off a crazy long layoff. He played in the Mideast, but at the same time, I do think there was an element of just getting back into it last week. I was glad that it was a non-cut. He gets some 4 rounds. And then, of course, the stats led me right to him. You just mentioned this. He was great tee to green. He could not putt at all. Was never really a threat in that tournament, which I like. I don't think he's on people's minds. You kind of have to dig into the stats if you want to find that. And he is obviously a world-class player. He's starting to rev up his schedule here. So I know it's not the best Brooks course on paper, but at the same time, when I talk about the top-end guys, I don't really worry about course fit because they're all so good. If they play well, they'll be just fine. And like you said, I expect that putter to turn around. JT, I mean, that Sunday was absurd. He played not good, and then all of a sudden one JT round, and he's right up there. Obviously, he was no threat to win that tournament, but it's just amazing how he can just salvage a whole week with. When he gets putting, it's unreal. So I get why he's the highest priced guy. I don't know what to make of Sergio. I know we mentioned him very briefly. I don't want to pay 10K for him, but at the same time, this is not the strongest field in the world. So I totally get the mindset of maybe going balanced with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's been striking it really well too. Almost 13 strokes gained with the ball striking his last two events. He was sixth in Mexico, 37th at Riviera, but he struck it really well. So yeah, I mean, I had him circled prior to pricing coming out at 10K. I can't say that I'm really excited about that, especially with Brooks at 10-7. So close to Sergio. It seems like Brooks far more likely to win this event. Much better DK score. So yeah, I would prefer Brooks over Sergio, but there are reasons to take Sergio. He's got, good course history. He's got a second here. He's got an eighth here. And he's been striking it really good, but 10K does seem a little expensive for me. I'm much preferential to Brooks, just pay the $700 more on my end.
What about split the difference and take Adam Scott, the putting wizard, all of a sudden?
God, I don't know what to do with him. He's played so well here. 13th, 14th, 1st, and 12th. That's his last four starts here, and he has a seventh and a second, on the current form line. It kind of all lines up, but boy, I don't know. It's tough. It's really, I mean, ownership has to almost guide you this week more than any other week. Because any of these guys are live to miss the cut. Just a couple bad shots and you can make huge numbers. You can make back-to-back doubles. So yeah, we have to kind of see what the sentiment is out there and really go from there. But yeah, I mean, Scott's not a guy. I mean, I can see why people would want to play him, but again, at 10-3, I'm just much more preferential to Koepka.
I am too. I get it. I think I echo those thoughts. Like he strikes it well. If he putts, that's been the missing link forever. And he's found something with his stupid anchor putter or whatever he does. At the same time, a lot of the allure of him was that he was priced really low. That's caught up quickly. The ownership's going to be there because of the form and because of the course history. So I'm not saying 0% move on, but at the same time, I don't know if I'm allocating a huge percentage to get over on the field, especially and kind of take to the next range as we work down. You've got other guys who are just below 10K. You've got Woodland, you've got Webb, Cam Smith, your favorite Daniel Berger, Billy Ho. The 9K range, I feel like every week when we talk, it's always a little trickier. You have guys playing well who kind of catapult a tier above where they are, and then you have some guys who are just steady contributors, maybe not the highest upside. What do? You just lock button Berger and then move on? Is that
yeah, just lock him in, man. That runner up at Puerto Rico, that was impressive last year.
Fire.
That was a great field he almost beat. Just got edged out by Martin Trainer. Yeah.
Didn't know he existed.
No, neither did I.
Okay.
For me, it's like Woodland, Webb, obviously solid. Really like Webb for this course. I think it's similar to the Players Championship. I mean, not a 1-for-1 exact correlation, but you got Bermuda greens, you got a ton of water. Obviously Florida course, pretty similar, and we saw what he did last year at the Players. The approach game for him has been great this year. 1.1 strokes gained approach per round, very solid. A little shaky off the tee, which might cause him some problems, but yeah, I can see the case for Woodland or Simpson. To me, then there's just a huge gap going down to Cameron Smith, Daniel Berger, Billy Horschel. I'm not a fan of any of these guys, to be honest with you. I don't know. It just seems like they're not nearly in the same class to me as Webb or Woodland.
Woodland is just good. When he clubs down, and this is another course where it's going to happen a lot, it really helps him because, he still can attack with the irons off the tee or wood or whatever he wants to use. But it limits the damage, limits the spraying, and he's just consistently putting up quality rounds. Cam Smith is the guy where I kind of he's in no man's land. I'm with you with Berger and Billy Ho. I have a trouble getting there with this price. Cam Smith is just so good around the green. One of the best in the world, in my opinion. I know the rest of his game isn't what you really want to see when you look for paying 9.5, but at the same time, even in Mexico, just a very quality showing. He seems to get it done despite it's atypical, but I don't think it's it's kind of, you had mentioned a couple weeks ago how all the top guys, they're almost all carbon copies of each other. They're just incredible drivers. You wish you had another, like when Spieth was good. Cam Smith is like that. It's a different tier, but he truly can get it done just around the green and putting. I know that's atypical. And I know you don't love to lean on a guy who his irons just aren't that good. They can get hot, no doubt. And his off the tee game is weak. So is not a normal blueprint, but at the same time, he does it so often. I don't mind going there. And then I'm with you with the other two. And then we have List and Benyon to round out the nines. Those two are, I get it. They both have played well here in particular. Benyon, I mean, his putting's as bad as Grillo, who we'll get to in a second.
Yeah, that first round was a work of art out of Benny. It was
impressive.
Wasn't it like birdie eagle and then just
so I was
I don't know what happened.
I was at Foxwoods. I was at the casino and I looked and he went, this was his start. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I don't know if anyone's ever done that in golf history ever. You just climb the ladder right to just being bad. And then I will give him credit. He did grind back on the weekend. He scored a ton, which is the allure of the non-cut. But in a situation like this, he'll be playing 36 holes if he starts like that. That there's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I'm more apt to go after the ball strikers this week on a week where you don't need to make a bunch of birdies. It seems like, there's quite a few holes and quite a few long par fours where it's like if you can hit the fairway and just hit the green at 25 feet and hopefully two putt from there, you're going to be picking up strokes or a fraction of a stroke on the field. This isn't one of those events where you're going to need to consistently hit it close and consistently convert, 8-10 foot birdie putts and go real low. Guys like Benny can, ball strike it around and hopefully not three putt from, 25 feet when he hits the middle of the green.
It's true. We've talked about that in the past about like JDC comes to mind where it's like you need to make 10 footers because you're going to get 15 birdie looks around. Like here, Grillo, Benyon, those types, when the winning score sometimes is like 10 under, you don't need to make that many putts. It's just don't get in trouble. So a guy like him who is an incredible ball striker, it really is more about can you make a couple, which of course he can. Consistently, no. And you don't need that here. That's a big allure. Obviously, priority number one for every player is avoid the water. If you avoid the water this week, it's hard to not be up there, honestly. Like so many people will be taking penalties when you look at the stats. I'm with you. Luke List, I'm a little more hesitant with, to be honest. Kind of feels like his run he had his moment and then it's kind of regressed, but the price is still up there for the course history bump.
Yeah, I don't think I'll get there. He doesn't seem, as sharp as he was, maybe this time last year. I don't think I can get to 9,200 for him. This is a weird course. I think, we've seen the game change so much. 5 years ago, I would have said this is like an ultimate accuracy course. Like you want the short guys that are going to find the fairway, the Russell Knox types. But I mean, it just has changed so much to where the long players are dominating even at this course. So, it's tough. I would say Luke List 5 years ago, I'd have said this is an awful fit for a guy like Luke List. But, we've just seen the longer players are just, they're dominating every event regardless of the course. And especially when they can club down guys like him, guys like Woodland, just such an advantage where they can hit an iron off the tee and still get it out there well enough to have a reasonable approach. So it's for me, it's just more of the price inflated by course history and just not feeling like he's quite been as sharp as maybe we saw him last year.
No, I'm with you. I really do think that more and more guys, I don't know if it's that they've gotten smarter in the sense of they're game planning better, but the long hitters are not just, it's not just overpowering courses. It's being smart. And the total driving, the abilities to just still get it out there. And for some of these par fours, which are on the longer side, it's not crazy long, but it's not like you can just, you're not going to be hitting wedge if you lay up off the tee. There's no doubt about it. And that helps a guy like Luke List. He can still get it out there and then hopefully hit enough greens where you're avoiding most of the trouble. we'll get down to the mid range in a second, but and this is your boy. I know I say that all the time. Alex Noren, what we might just have to do a separate show just discussing him. Is he even good at this point? Like, I don't know what has happened. I don't know if it's me. I get wrapped up in him, and then I look at his stats, and friend of the show, a couple of people they say it all the time. What is he even good at? It's not. It's really frustrating. And now he's 9,000, and I'm still kind of interested.
He is good at beating really bad European Tour fields, apparently. I don't know.
Where he racked up like
6 wins.
This guy, his irons lately, it's just I don't even know. I look and it's not even timely putting. Like, yeah, scrambling's all right, but it's pretty bad.
I'm trying to find his ball striking numbers here from the last couple weeks.
He's just I'm not sure if he was just in over his head playing phenomenal, because he went on a really good stretch last year with Farmers, and here the irons were great, the putting was great. It was the guy that I certainly saw a ton with Euro. Now he's just, it seems, outmatched. He's been playing awful, and yet I still don't know what I really want to do with him. I have a hard time saying I'm going to play a bunch of them at this point, though.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't really shown us much at all lately that would, really lead us to want to play him, at high levels. I would say the difficult conditions probably are beneficial to him, but yeah, at 9K, and that price is probably propped up a little bit by the third here last year. There's other places. I would play Benny on before I played Noren. Benny, we know what the problem is, and the putting.
Right.
It comes and goes with everybody. Even poor putters will, kind of catch lightning in a bottle once in a while. Yeah, but Noren just kind of looks like he's just kind of, floundering out there. We're not sure what's going on with him. So I'd much rather take Benny, who we're almost certain the ball striking will be great. And then we're kind of just wondering about the putter. And even here this week, where if the putter is just not horrible, that could be enough, for Benny to play well. Noren, it's kind of hard to pinpoint like what we need him to do, what he needs to do better. He just hasn't been good.
Boy. Do you feel the same way about Grillo? Because I feel like I could just put his name with Benny on and you say the same thing, because he loses 4 or 5 strokes putting every week.
Yeah, boy, I struggle. This is the hardest one of the week for me, because I've played Grillo like every week of the last 3 or 4 weeks, and he's been awful. The ball striking has been great, and the putting has been terrible. He's gaining like a stroke and a half with his ball striking every round, and it's been consistent this whole year. But he's losing almost a stroke around putting, which is, if you don't follow that closely, that's abysmal. He's 212th on tour in strokes gained putting. And last year he putted better. It's so odd. He was a horrible putter for a couple years. Then last year he putted really well, and now this year he's back to putting horrible. So I really felt like when the pricing came out, I felt like 8,900 was too much, because 58th, 33rd, 52nd, 22nd, that's his finishes this year, and I've been along for that every one of those finishes. And 8,900 just seems too expensive if you're for a guy that's going to possibly finish, T40. But like we said, on Bermuda, that's a surface he's probably more comfortable on. That's something that could definitely kickstart the putting. Ben Coley likes him. My buddy Ryan Baroff likes him. 2 guys who I respect their opinions. So now it has me really leaning to going back to Grillo. People think that, being in Florida, being on Bermuda might turn the putting around. And plus, he's another guy, tougher scoring conditions, much better for him, I think, than a birdie fest.
That's for certain. Here's the thing with Grillo. I like him. I've been playing him a ton. I think he's going to be really popular, because you just look, people see the same things that with the ball striking. They see the finish last year, and I want to point out he gained 5.5 strokes putting last year here, and he was great, as he should be. When he gained, the most insane stat possibly ever is that he gained 10.7 strokes putting at Fort Worth, and he didn't win. That was his moment. He blew it. you said it. He found something on the greens around this time last year, and the ball striking wasn't as great as it was or it is right now. So can he put it all together? Well, that would be great. And if he does that, he'll be right there. There's no doubt. Um, it's going to be scary if he looks like chalk, and that's why obviously behind the paywall we do have ownership projections. I'm going to be checking those out because you said it with water with the variance here. If Griot is projecting as one of the highest owned guys, it's not like I'm going to full fade him, but I'll have to seriously consider in certain spots building around that. Because there's a very real chance that his putting doesn't change. And if you lose 4 or 5 strokes putting, yeah, you can make the cut, but it's just very hard to get placement points, which you need when you're almost $9,000.
Yeah, for sure. And placement points are going to be more important this week with, fewer birdies, a lot fewer eagles. So yeah,
Streaks, bonuses, yeah.
yeah, fewer everything really, except for
I like
bogeys.
that. I'm more. I hate on Sunday where oh, everything's going good, and then I don't have these 5 Effie barn rats just getting the bonus. Like no, just no. Speaking of Effie Barnrat, he's in the eights. Charles in the eights. This is a weird range. A lot of random guys from all different. We got a couple of Euros in there. What do you like? This could be your depending on where you build, maybe your second or third man into a lineup.
Yeah, I mean this whole range is what's really throwing a wrench in my lineup building this
It's
week.
weird.
It's like, man, can I make like JT and Brooks lineups and but no, you can't do that either. Yeah, it's rough. I'm not really a fan um of any of these guys. I mean, Charles played well in Puerto Rico last week, which is a strange place for him to even be teeing it up. But all the way up to 8,300, I don't think I can get there. Afa Barnrat had his, twice a year he'll finish in the top 5 at a really strong event, and the other, 90% of the time he'll be terrible. He's not a guy. Honestly, probably low 8K. If you want to talk ball strikers and putters, terrible putters, Piercy's there at 8,100. I would prefer him over, any of the guys in the mid to kind of upper 8K range below Grillo. So he's been playing, fairly well, 10th and 20th in his last 2 starts. Again, I trust the ball striking at a tough course, to kind of carry some of these guys through the cut, and even if they're not putting great. Michael Thompson is like, he could be the definition of bad chalk.
Yeah.
I wrote in my notes, I put a skull and crossbones right next to his name because I'm not sure what to do with him. I think he'll be incredibly popular, but his last 4 finishes, he hasn't finished outside of T13, T7, T10, 13th, and 9th. He won here. He's a guy who putts much better on Bermuda, but I think he might be one of the highest owned guys on the slate, and that should be very scary, I think.
And like every year, it's the Joel Dahman, M Top. Like maybe this is a leak in my game. I just have such a hard time paying when I rarely, if ever, play Michael Thompson. So I'm going to play him when he's wildly popular and overpriced. I know everything's clicking, and more power to him. He quietly, or maybe I just missed it. I did not know he was playing that well. I saw that this morning, and I was like, wow. He's cooking. Everything sets up. If you're running models, you're looking at stats, you're going to get to M. Thompson. I get it. But man, I would rather take a multitude of other people. Scott Piercy would be one of them. Knox as we get into the sevens. The one guy, I'm not going to mention Charles, who did play well in Puerto Rico. We don't know what he did stats wise. I'll give my quick shout out, as I always do, to JT Poston. Just playing good, quietly climbing the ranks on the tour. He's not a great iron player, so I don't know how good the fit is. Incredible putter, good off the tee. Russell Henley's in that range. I'll be giving him a long look. I prefer him over Matt Wallace. That's not my speed, but I think Michael Thompson's probably the most volatile play on the entire slate. He's going to be incredibly popular, and there's a lot of risk. But at the same time, if he churns out another T15, you're going to probably want to have him. There's no doubt about that either.
It's so funny with him because going back to the fall series at the RSM, he was like heavy chalk. He was like mid 20, like 25%, and he missed the cut there. And then we went in the off season and they come back at Sony, and I played him at Sony, and he was like 2%. Like nobody wanted to play him, and he played awful. But then he's just kind of slowly playing better. Now he's playing really well, and he's going to be back to being chalk, just like we saw at the RSM. And this is a similar course, but
the irons have just been stupid good. Everything's really good though, honestly.
This is the hardest part, I think, of this week is like just not playing guys like this who look like really good plays just due to the ownership. Because I mean, once they tee off on Thursday, you're going to see some crazy things happening with some really big numbers.
It is. I mean, you gotta, just like everything with DFS, there's a blend to it. You don't want to just say, "Oh, this guy's highly owned. I'm playing like I'm fading." Don't do that. But at the same time, if you're finding someone like Michael Thompson, it stands out to everybody. Everyone's going to be seeing the 4 top 10s. He's got the course history. He's got the irons. So if you think it continues, you're going to want him in there. I just, at a course like this, a lot of variance. And as I mentioned, Scott Piercy's right there. Russell Knox, your guilty pleasure, is right there. CT Pan, who's my guilty pleasure, is right there. These are guys, they're not the longest hitters. And although we were saying that, the bombers per se, they certainly have figured out how to attack courses like this. This is a type of course that shorter hitters off the tee, they're not at a disadvantage by any stretch. So I don't mind. Are you going to go to Knox at all? I know he's been
I honestly think he's one of the best plays out there for the price.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this is the field, it's not that strong. So a lot of these guys that aren't that great seem a little overpriced. He seems, very reasonably priced or even underpriced. We have him 50-1 outright odds. He has a second and a third here. Missed the cut the last 2 years, but he's been playing well. 39th last week, didn't play too good in Mexico. I think I kind of misread that course. Even though it plays short, the bomb and gouge guys seem to have a huge advantage there.
Yeah, DJ is just that is his course. Like he just gets it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the ability on those short par fours to just kind of drive it up by the green, even if you're not on the green. Yeah, so he was T39 there. So I'm not sure that was the best course fit. But, 14th, 10th, 43rd, 18th before that, been playing decently well. And I do think this is a great course for him. And, we said the longer hitters have kind of figured this place out. But as we go farther down the line with the cheaper players and sort of getting into the punt range, I would still prefer the accuracy guys here because they seem to probably be a little less volatile if you're hitting the fairway, than the sprayers of the world. So I think this is a perfect setup for him. We've seen him play well here. We've seen him play well at Harbor Town. We've seen him play well at the Players. He prefers these shorter accuracy courses. So I think it's obviously a great course for him. The ownership will probably be there on him too. I'd be much more in favor of playing a chalky Russell Knox than a chalky Michael Thompson. So,
and I'm hoping, if you do a quick scan of the course history, especially the recent, that may deter some people. But as we said at the top of the show, you're going to get that. Yeah, 2 straight missed cuts, and then before that, he was unstoppable. So that
JT has 2 missed cuts and a win and a third. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's what Water does. I mean, Knox is the poster boy. It wasn't here. It was at the Players. He had a big number that one year. I remember I had him. And that's what these courses can do. So I'm with you. I think this sets up much better than last week. He had to play with Spieth last week too. You can't quantify how tilting that's got to be for the poor guy. That was in his group, but him and CT Pan, they're used to hitting long irons. That's not going to bother them. Can handle conditions if it's windy, which again doesn't look like it's going to be as windy as normal, but I wouldn't be stunned to see the wind pick up as the week goes on. So, oh boy. Next guy on the list is Chesson Hadley. We should have just pretended he wasn't there and moved on. Yeah. It's bad. To me, that's the meter. And I know we're only in the high 7s here. This is where it starts to get dicey and you're not going to find complete plays. So what you just said, I think is really important. Give me if you do one thing really good, I'll work around that. Hopefully that thing is ball striking. You got guys as we work down. What do you think of the mid 7s? I know Neiman is there. There's some other dudes. No Neiman.
Neiman, that guy scares me, especially at this.
So scary.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have him at a course. He seems a much better fit for an easy course than a driver heavy course. But you know, I don't know. We'll see. McDowell, I like really good course history here. Just seems like a great course for him. He thrives at the hard courses and the short courses. Mayakoba, RBC, Pebble, all places he's won. Didn't play so well in Puerto Rico last week, but I just think this is kind of a good setup for him. Um, Going down from there, I wouldn't mind going back to Sung J M after he actually took a week off and
Just a rest. Thank
didn't
God.
play for like the first time in 27 weeks in a row. Um, Again, the ball striking has been really good. Even you know the last couple weeks where he's missed the cut, I felt like he's for a season long standpoint. I mean, he's gaining almost a stroke with the ball striking. So I think this is definitely a place where that's going to help. You know, hitting fairways, hitting greens, avoiding the water. I wouldn't mind going back to him. Another guy, my other guy that I have a skull and crossbones next to is Jason Kokrak.
Oh, he's gonna be
Um,
popular.
God, I know if he's popular, he's another one to just stay away from. But the finishes and the price and the ball striking, it all lines up. It all looks great. For 7,300, he's made his last 4 cuts. 3 of them were top 20s. He's gaining 1.35 strokes with his ball striking, which is phenomenal. But it's like we have such a long sample of him not being good, and it's not like one of these
Correct.
guys where he's a young guy and it's like maybe he's not. I mean, he's been on tour forever. Is all of a sudden Kokrak going to change and morph into a top 50 player in the world? I highly doubt it. I mean, this is just probably a really good stretch for him. So if he's going to be at all popular, he's another guy, even more so than Michael Thompson, because Thompson's been playing really, really well. And this is a course that should set up well for him. And he's played here well before. But Kokrak, I don't know.
I never play him.
I don't ever play him either. But the price, the ball striking, the finishes all line up. But, if we're talking a 20% on Kokrak, that just seems very, very dangerous.
That guy, every time I mean, this is every week because I just said I don't play him. He starts out, he makes a 30-footer. He putts, he gets super lucky. And then by the end, by Friday afternoon, he's always almost missing the cut. He always is close to, doing the Keegan, and then he doesn't, and then he plays the weekend. I will say, in all seriousness, he is playing a lot better. But you said it. He's in the Ryan Palmer bucket. They are who we thought they were. They're not changing. And as you alluded to in the tweet to get our views up, like there's so much water here. This seems tailor-made for him to rinse a couple and just douse the field. There's a huge opportunity cost in my book as well. Sunjay Im is there. I do. If I was going to take a stab, I would much rather play Neiman. I think if you're going to do that, you're going to get a tenth of, not a tenth of the ownership, but reduced ownership for another volatile scorer. And Neiman at one point was a good ball striker, and he's young enough where we don't really know how good his, ultimately in a couple of years, he could be able to handle a track like this no problem. So I'm with you there. It's just Kokrak, the stats do line up. You're going to be uncomfortable if you do fade him just because of that. I'm willing to do that. Chat just asked us, and as usual, we do love you guys in chat. If you can give us a thumbs up, we do appreciate it. What about Kelly Kraft, who's also, he had a good showing at Genesis. Do you have any interest there as a 1%er?
No, less than zero. I'm sorry.
Kelly Kraft I play that guy occasionally. I prefer to do it in Texas. He's a Texas guy. I don't know if this is the spot for him. He is on the list to, if there was a water ball prop, like obviously Ryan Palmer would be the favorite. Kelly Kraft would be a dark horse to win that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll be popular this week. Kelly Kraft is so weird. If you look at his results over like a 3-year stretch, it's like 75% missed cuts and then a random T3, like out of nowhere. Like he'll miss like 7 cuts in a row. He's got the dreaded, like he's coming off a top 10, plus he had a top 10 here last year, but he's an awful player. It's like one of the, it's like I can't.
Telltale sign of a trap.
Telltale. There's no. I mean, and he's not good.
That's also the problem. Just not a great golfer, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many more. Like you said, if you want to go for a wild man, just play Neiman. If you want the very boring play. You can go McDowell, and there's cheaper guys like him.
Give
I
me
would
Bud Cauley over him.
yeah.
I see, that's a good question because I see how you get to Kelly Craft this week. You said it. There are things that line up. I just, all in all, if you zoom out a little more, it's like, this guy, maybe if you're playing 150 lineups, you can have a couple percentage points, but I'm not going to go there. There's other, if I was going to do that, I'd rather play Brian Harmon on just a complete whim who's shown nothing. I'm not going to do that either for the record. Do you have anyone else? What about, I wanted to ask you about this guy, and then we can move on to the real shady characters. What about Harold Varner? It's not a great course for him. Do you have any interest, or you prefer Sunjay Im at the same price?
Yeah, I had two separate people ask me about Varner on Twitter yesterday, and I
Really?
mean, I just can't.
Hmm.
It just seems like an awful course fit for him. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get there with him at 7,300. There's just, there's other guys. Sometimes it's like a complete dead range, and maybe you're gonna, when you're building lineups, you might need a guy that you're not 100% sold on from a certain price range. But there are guys here that I do like, and I much prefer him. Um, and
Chat.
then kind of going down a little bit from there, I think Mullinax at 7,100 is a really
Okay.
good play. Again, ownership pending, as with, we'll put an asterisk on almost all these guys. It's like, if any of these guys look like heavy chalk, you're probably going to want to stay away from him. But, Mullinax played really well. Last four events, T34 was his worst finish, gaining about 7/10 of a stroke, ball striking. A lot of that is off the tee, which I don't really have a problem with here. The approach game has been okay. The off the tee has been really solid, but this isn't it's not a super driver heavy course, but it is a course where I think it rewards kind of the total driving, and it's going to take a lot of the water out of the play, leave you with easier approaches. So yeah, and I think he's another guy, SEC guy, born and raised in SEC country. I think he should be more comfortable on Bermuda. So yeah, I mean, I'd play Mullinax at 7,100. I'm much more apt to go there than I am at HV3 at 7,300.
Yeah, I Molinex is interesting because he's not the right fit in terms of who you'd think, but he can go low. He's playing pretty well. I do want to say, chat pointed this out, and I'm glad they did. Obviously, I'm playing Dylan Fratelli. I didn't mention him at 7,400. That's a macro. I'm playing him a lot early in the year. His best finish on tour was here last year, which I don't read that much, but it can't be bad. He just needs to get it going with the putter. When he does, he's good. When he doesn't, he's not so good. Last guy in the sevens, and it also came from Chad, and it's a good question. And he couldn't get further away from Trey Mullinax to this guy. What about Jim Furyk, who's playing pretty well?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely have considered him. I think 7K is a decent price. He's going to keep it in play. We know that. And yeah, he's not playing that bad. I like him. He's definitely, I don't think he'll be owned, and he seems pretty safe, kind of just let everybody else blow up while he just hits, a 230-yard drive in the fairway and kind of goes from there. Yeah, I have some interest in Furyk. Not the most exciting play. Definitely not going to bring a lot of DK scoring to the table, but in tough scoring conditions, like we said, that's a little less relevant this week. So yeah, I do, and it fits my brand for he's like a 50-year-old guy that can barely hit the ball, 260.
Right in your wheelhouse.
So yeah, right in my wheelhouse. But yeah, there's worse plays out there for sure.
No doubt about that. The low environment, I know that will help him. He's not meant to have streaks and bonuses and all this crazy. He can, if it's really tough, he can grind to 8, 10 under and get right in there. I not going crazy with him. There's a lot of guys in that range. But I think you kind of have to separate it to just put a bow on the 7K range. You've got guys for me like Neiman, Fratelli, those types who are Trey Mullinax, a little crazier. I see Scott Brown and Throna and Gooch and Chat. Guys like that, real big upside, real big miscut equity. Then on the other side, you've got the bucket with like Furyk, Brian Gay, those types, Sunjay Im, I think. Lower variance, keep it in play, try to avoid the water. Can they still hit in the water? Of course, but I feel like they have a better chance with the safety side of it than the craziness of some of the wild men.
Yeah, I would say, one of the drawbacks, or one of the only drawbacks I would see with guys like Brian Gay or Furyk is like this is already a course that puts an emphasis on long approaches. And then when you're super short off the tee, it's like they're hitting so many long, really long approaches. And even if that's one of their strengths, it's like hitting an approach from 210 versus somebody else is hitting an approach from 180. Even if they have the advantage in strokes gained approach, still approaches from 210 are not going to be that close to the hole. So like this is, they're going to be hitting a lot of really long approaches, and that would be um the only drawback I can see with some of these really short guys like Gay and Furyk. But I'm not opposed to going that route, but that's just kind of something to be aware of.
For sure. You want to, like everything, you want to kind of consider that and then see someone like Russell Knox doesn't bother me with. Some of these guys, it's going to be a concern. Do we want to get now? It gets the 6K range because I originally, I like to play around with the lineups before we jump on. You put in JT up top, you're taking some real dicey plays down here. I didn't find much at all in the 6K range.
No, it's really really bad. And the fact that this is such a tough course and the opportunities for blowups, the miscut equity is so huge. It's like, when you're playing the John Deere, you feel like you can take stabs with some really cheap guys. And I don't know if it's just a psychological thing for me, but you're like, well, it's an easy course. Some of these guys can get hot. But I mean, it's like when you start thinking about, you know, playing Keith Mitchell or Tom
Cool, Keith.
Hoagie at like one of the toughest courses on tour with water everywhere. It just seems like, man, this could go really bad in a hurry. So yeah, there's not a lot that I like here. I mean, Mitchell if you want scoring, but it just seems like a terrible course fit for him. Streelman, the guy's been striking the ball great for 2 years and just can't seem to make a putt. But he's a guy. I guess at 6,700, I wouldn't mind. But just not a lot that's really piqued my interest down here. Carlos Ortiz has had two good ball striking events in a row. He was ninth. Um, I think that was at Riviera, and then he was 60th at Waste Management, but struck it really well. At 6,600, I don't know if you want to kind of follow some like recent ball striking form. Gained almost 8 strokes off the tee and on approach in those two events, but yeah, it's ugly down here, really ugly.
It's bad. I looked at Vaughn Taylor, striking it
Oh yeah,
okay. He's in the Furyk bucket.
for sure.
Um, Roberto Castro, who is a guilty pleasure of mine. I like to play that guy. Again, you're not going to find someone who's playing well, has good course history, hitting the irons good. Like that's if they have all that, they're not in the sixes. So you're going to have to pick something and say I can live with this, whether it's he's good off the tee, he shouldn't get into trouble, or he's good with the irons, or he's playing well. I saw some questions about do you read because it's interesting. Some guys are coming off the WGC. Then you have other guys. Johnson Wagner was the one specifically. They're bad players, but some of them found some form in an awful field in Puerto Rico. Do you read anything into that? Sepp Straka. Didn't really know who that is. Uh, I'm not apt to really jump on one good week from the Puerto Rico Open, but at the same time, it does break some long miscut streaks for some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean the field is so weak. It's kind of hard. People use the term like a finding form, and it's like maybe they didn't even really play that much better than they had before. It's just the competition was so bad. If
That's
you lower
fair.
the competition enough, you can play poorly and still have a decent finish. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I totally disregard what happened in Puerto Rico last week, but it's not like, oh, this guy's been awful and then he T20'd in Puerto Rico. I mean, he could have not played that well. I mean, that was a really, really awful field, kind of a borderline web.com field. So yeah, I wouldn't go too heavy on thinking guys really turned it around based on what they did in Puerto Rico. And a guy like Schwartzel
Yep.
would be, yeah, would be exhibit A of that. He's maybe a little bit of a different story because he had been playing awful and he actually finished, very well. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm not putting too much stock into what happened at the Puerto Rico Open, especially we have no shot linked at. If we could look at the ball striking and the putting numbers, I think that'd be another story. Give us a little better idea of what happened. But yeah, we're kind of going blind, and it was such a weak field. I'm not paying much attention to it, honestly.
Same. It can't hurt. Obviously, it's better than Chris Kirk, who just missed the cut there. Like that doesn't inspire much confidence. But at the same time, like you said, if a guy is playing bad, goes to Puerto Rico and comes in 25th, I don't think that's just a catalyst to just, oh, now he's just going to start racking up top 20s in real fields. So I'm with you. If I have to go into the sixes, and I'm sure I will on certain teams, I'll probably just take guys that I think are long-term decent players, whether it's Peter Uline. I know people may be confused at why I said decent players and then I suggested him, but what are you going to do? You got Danny Lee is in there. Just some names that Streelman, you mentioned him. At least I've got a body of work on some of these guys. Whereas you want to start playing around with, I tried the Anders Albertson train a couple weeks ago. It doesn't work. There's a bunch of the Webbies where we don't have a ton of data and we don't know how they're going to react. Some of them, this is the first Florida swing for them. You can try to infer, of course, you're going to get low ownership, but you want to be pretty careful. I think a lot of these guys are going to be racking up some monster numbers pretty fast.
I got one for you.
Oh, boy.
Total terrible course fit. 6,400 Lucas Bjerregaard. All right.
Oh, this guy. You see his putting numbers last week?
Almost hit double digits in strokes gained putting. Lost 9.7. Lost 9.7 strokes putting last week. I mean, that's like borderline unheard of. And Leishman almost matched him.
That I know. I saw that firsthand because I was monitoring that.
I love the tweet that you were like, at least we get 4 rounds so we can try and like break the record for the most strokes.
He was off to a ridiculous start. Then he slowed, and then you just said it. Bjerregaard took over. I don't think this is the right course for him, but if it's calm, I will say that someone like that, the calm conditions are definitely going to help. He's a wild man. I was kind of surprised he was in the field, but hey, he's probably a better player than most of the other guys. Where he's low 6, you said 6'4"?
6,400, yeah.
You're not going to find much down there, if anything. Like, if you asked me, and maybe this is just a bias because in European events, obviously, he's put up some very solid numbers. I would rather play him than, like, Tyler Duncan or, Max Homa, guys that I think will garner, not ownership, but they're not going to have 0% ownership. So when you can lose 10 strokes putting in a week, that's impressive in a bad sort of way, but he definitely is a wild card to the extreme.
He'll just be happy to be off of those greens in Mexico. So, I mean, it couldn't get any worse this week.
Everyone, I think, is happy to get off them. We don't have Blaine Barber, I think, made the field, but he's not in Bermuda Benny, Bermuda Blaine.
All these Bermuda guys. The only other guy I saw down here, he's definitely not an exciting play. Fits into the Furyk, Gay, Vaughn Taylor mold, was Brian Stewart at 6,500.
I looked at him. I see that too, actually.
Yeah, he's made all 5 cuts this year. Last season he was 5th on tour in driving accuracy, so he's going to keep the ball in the fairway. He's going to eliminate, hopefully, most of that water off the tee, and at least set himself up for an approach from the fairway. But again, I mean, he's an extreme punt. He's made the cuts. He's really not even, playing that well. But I mean, I just like if you want to punt with a guy and you're just trying to get somebody through the cut for cheap.
That's the Ryan Blom move.
Yeah.
Guy comes in 65th every week. I've never seen anything like it.
But it all depends on what you're looking for, out of a player. Bjerregaard is wild man, and Brian Stewart is like the polar opposite, yet they're right around the same price. So, if you're, GPP life, you might want to throw in a little Bjerregaard. Stewart if you're, feeling really boring or you have enough variance in your lineup.
It's true. It's all about building a blend. And I don't know why I do that with Ryan Blom, and I feel like a damn genius. I'm the only one who plays him in some of like the higher end stuff, and then he doesn't even help. Because all in all, especially if you're playing a big field, you need him to do something. You can't just come in 60th. It's just not going to get it done. But yeah, you want to just build that balance. It's a perfect segue just to say real quick, tomorrow night, Catch me again with Jason Roslin. We'll be talking more lineup construction, obviously on the awesemo.com homepage. Find the time. We'll be breaking the field down, doing a Q&A with chat. And if you haven't signed up, use the promo code Jazraz, 50% off first month. Why not? Come give it a try. You get Slack. You get to talk to Tim all day, every day. He just sits in there and is just fielding questions. That's what he does.
That's it. I'm just like, I live in Slack.
Lives in Slack, all Norin related. Before we get out of here, did you bet? I saw you tweet about Wee Kim, which was disturbing. I don't get that price either. Just to say that real quick, chat mentioned Wee Kim, wildly overpriced. Did you bet anyone to win though?
I did. I'm embarrassed to say though, but I bet Zach Johnson.
Oh my God, I shouldn't. You got to tell me that before the show so I don't bring it up.
I don't like him for DraftKings, to be honest with you. The price,
Shameful.
8,700. I think there's other better options for DK, but I mean, I just felt like for the course fit, the number of times he's won on tour, for him to be 66-1 when that's a comparable price for guys like Kokrak. Grillo is 40-1. It seemed to stick out to me. I don't know, and then someone's like, well, he hasn't won since 2015, and that kind of put a little bit of a damper on my
that guy. I think he looks like Joaquin Phoenix, but no one agrees with me. Is that bad? Chad, I want to hear from that tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not a Zach Johnson guy. I feel like
I'm not either. I'm really not.
You're not. That's why I'm so stunned about this.
It really stuck out to me. I don't know what it was. It just seemed 66-1. When you looked around at some of the other guys, were like I know Webb Simpson playing exponentially better right now than Zach Johnson, but we have like Webb Simpson 20-1. Cameron Smith 25-1. Guys that have never won on tour and aren't even playing that well are like 50-1. And shorter than Zach Johnson, who's won.
I will say the price isn't. I agree that Zach Johnson. Ugh.
And the way that I prefaced it in my tweet was like, it's great. I think it's great value that's not going to win. Like he'll have a front row seat to like JT or Brooks just dusting the field. But I think 66-1. I think that's a really good bet. It's a value bet, but as they say, you can't eat value. So
can confirm.
Yeah.
Hey, 66-1, like you said, you only got to be right a couple times. Or in Scott Piercy's camp, maybe never, but it's we'll see what's what. It'll be fun. Any last words on the DK side before we get out of here?
No, I mean, just pay attention to ownership.
Yep.
And we've said it many, many times, but I mean, it's really hard, especially if you're not if golf isn't your main sport, and it's really hard to kind of turn down some of these guys that look like the best plays. But just from years of watching this tournament, there will be carnage. So just, you got to look at the ownership and avoid the chalk, especially the bad chalk, like probably Kokrak will be.
Man, we're going to bury it. Next week could be a bad show. When
he's going to win, right?
It's just him and M. Thompson in a playoff. On that note, I agree with you. You know what? I'm more apt to say, let's see what the wind and the water do. Be a little different, mix it up, embrace that variance, and sign it up. But this was fun. As always, thanks everyone for watching. Like it on your way out. Hit us up on Twitter if you have questions. If you're in Slack, just talk to us there. We're always around. I'll be back tomorrow. Let's go, Russell Knox. Let's take this down. If not him, I hope Zach Johnson wins. For your sake, we'll bounce on out of here. Good luck, everyone. We will see you back next week.